Alyssa, you have the question.
Coleman, thanks for being here. So in the past decade, it feels like racial tensions have gotten worse. Do you see it that way, and what do you attribute it to?
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at all the data, it finds that race relations were getting better until about 2013. That year, you had a majority of Black, Hispanic, and white Americans saying race relations were good, and then you just see it nosedive. And 2013, people like to blame, Republicans like to blame Obama. Wasn't his fault. Democrats like to blame Trump. It was actually just technology. We all got social media and smartphones, and we had videos being promoted in the algorithm that were unrepresentative, and it created this impression that racism was on the rise when, in fact, it had been on the decline for decades.
With the clip of Coleman Hughes on The View going viral the last few days, I really wanted to react to a conversation that he had with Joe Rogan. As you guys know, I love Joe Rogan and a lot of his perspective. I especially appreciate him because of his long form conversations. I think that's really the only way that we're going to get to an understanding with each other, because at the end of the day, we're not always going to agree on everything. So I think it's always best to actually understand where people are coming from so that you can sympathize with them, so that you can rationalize with them. We're not going to be able to do it through 15-second sound bites or 140-character tweets. We really need to have those conversations, ask those hard questions, ask the whys, and get to the bottom of things. I want to hear Coleman explain his experience on The View, as well as share a couple of clips from The View, just that we could get some context out of that conversation. We're just unable to have a genuine conversation, trying to understand each other and not just put words into each other's mouth. So let's get into it.
Yeah, I saw you on The View.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's been overwhelming my past couple days.
Yeah, is that annoying?
No.
No?
No. I mean, it's just, when I was on there, I really had no idea how it was going to land with the audience. So I just went in there, did my thing. I had no idea what to expect. I didn't know who Sunny Hostin was. I actually still really don't know. So I wasn't expecting necessarily for her to kind of try to ambush me in that way and attack my character in that way. And I responded to it in the moment, as I do. And I didn't expect it to go as viral as it did, but I think it arguably went more viral than anything I've ever done. It's hard for me to totally tell, but I've just got people messaging me almost nonstop for like 4 days afterwards.
Well, it is the show that people love to hate.
Yes, that's true. That's true. Yes,
the cackling hens.
They get so much hate watching and hate watching viral clips of them saying ridiculous things. I mean, it is a rabies infested.
They make it too easy, Joe.
And at the same time, it seemed like the most interesting part was their audience seemed to be on my side.
Yes. Yes.
And that's their audience.
Yes. Well, their audience is not really their audience. Their audience is a group of people they bring in to watch television shows. I don't know if you've ever seen audiences before for TV shows, but a lot of them are paid. They're paid to be there. So because they have to guarantee that there's going to be people there. So there's services that you hire. And when a show gets really, really popular, like Letterman or something like that, obviously it has its own fan base.
Right.
Those people will try to get tickets before anybody else does. And in that case, they probably don't need to use a service anymore. They just get actual fans. But arguably, like the real fans of The View that are like, oh, these ladies are on point. Most of those people can't leave the house. Like they're probably immobile.
Right. Because their mom's taking their kids to school, and that's,
It's a very strange show, but it's fun to watch. It's just fun to watch them.
It's good entertainment.
Yeah.
Undoubtedly.
Well, they're just, it's interesting because I think Sunny is very intelligent, but she's ideologically captured.
Right.
I think the other ones, there's a couple of the other ones, don't have to name any names, are just very dull.
Joe Behar.
But I think Sunny's
Whoopi.
not one of them. I think she's smart, but captured.
Sure. I think she came into it with an agenda.
Of course. They do everything with an agenda.
Yeah. She came into it, it seems, really wanting to paint me as someone that has been co-opted by the right wing.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much research she had done into me. She claimed to have read my book twice, which is almost certainly not true.
So I just want to jump in here real quick, because this is something that I see a lot of individuals on the left typically do, and that is to patronize you, pretend like they actually have an understanding of the information that you guys are about to discuss. There was another example that I pointed out in a previous video between Jordan Peterson and Sophie Turner. If you guys have a chance, please do check it out. That's a conversation where Jordan is discussing the pay gap between males and females. During that interview, she also said, I read your book quickly last night so that we can have this conversation. I understand, No, it's BS, okay? These women aren't actually doing that. They're not actually doing their research. They're just finding things to trigger them. and then they're going to try and dismantle your conversation. Because what are you going to do? Quiz them on the book real quick? Like ask them to take a test? Ask them to pull up the Cliff Notes? No. So anyways.
Yeah,
Because she was totally missummarizing.
When did the book come out?
February.
The odds are very low.
Very low, right? Because
very low.
Think of how many guests they have on their show, how
many
much
things
time
you have
she
to do,
has.
family.
Yeah, do you not have a
obligations.
wife?
What is it, about 250 pages?
Something like that, yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
But I mean, I might be wrong. I mean, do you have an audiobook available?
I do, yeah. I read it myself.
Maybe she did it at double speed.
Yeah.
Twice.
So I sounded like Ben Shapiro the whole time.
I think the problem with that show is that show has this very specific ideological bubble in which they operate in. You know, and they always bring on a token conservative woman and they yell over her and silence her. And, you know, they did that with Meghan McCain and they did that with what is that other blonde woman from Survivor? Do you remember her, Jamie? She was always yelling. I mean, it's just, it's a bizarre show.
So we had 8 minutes, and America's approach to race, pretty big topic, pretty important topic.
I think the way you, before you start, I think the way you described it is brilliant and the way we should all look at it.
If you guys haven't had a chance to watch The View, first of all, I don't blame you, but I'm going to go ahead and insert the clip of how Coleman describes race in America in current day.
First question that I should ask you to do is explain to folks what you mean by this. Arguments for a colorblind America. What do you mean when you say that?
So a lot of people equate colorblindness to I don't see race or to pretending not to see race. I think that's a big mistake. We all see race, right? And we're all capable of being racially biased, so we should all be self-aware to that possibility. My argument is not for that. My argument is that we should try our very best to treat people without regard to race, both in our personal lives and our public policy.
Of course.
And the reason I wrote this book, thank you. The reason I wrote this book is because in the past 10 years, it has become very popular to, in the name of anti-racism, teach a kind of philosophy to our children and in general that says your race is everything, right? And I think that is the wrong way to fight racism, and that's why I wrote this book at this time.
It's an immutable characteristic, okay? We can't change these things, so why judge each other based upon these things? Of course, we all see it. Of course, we can all recognize it and we can see and appreciate each other's differences. However, whenever you start judging people off of this pretense of what it is, that's when it becomes an issue. And currently, so much is being blamed on race or identity politics. So therefore, we're forced to see it. That's why we're forced to have these conversations.
That's right. Yeah, there's been this common phrase, I don't see race, that's equated with colorblindness. And point of my book is I want to say, get rid of that. Of course we see race, certainly in America, in the West. You could argue about whether children really see race, but past a certain point, we see race. Point is not to pretend you don't see it. It's to say, you know, you're a white guy, I'm a black and Hispanic guy. We notice that. We're not going to pretend it's not there, but whenever it matters, I'm going to try to treat you like an individual based on your personal qualities, and we're going to ask the government to do the same. Get race out of public policy. If you want to help disadvantaged people, do that on the basis of class.
100%. And understand that when you see these incentives that are put into corporations, these are methods of control. And that's what's going on when you see things like DEI initiatives. You're not really making the world a better place.
Right.
You're just allowing
DEI, affirmative action, whenever you're practicing any type of race-based selection and prioritization, that's when we're starting to see these issues. And I think it's more important that we have conversations around merit and just, again, try to understand each other based on each other's experiences. However, incorporating it into every single decision or incorporating it into standards, I think that is something that we should be mindful of. That's something that we should be aware of, because at what point have we lowered the standards too much? And I actually want to dive into a conversation maybe later on in the week, but Don Lemon had an interview with Elon Musk, and that was actually a point of contention in their conversation. Elon had pointed out the fact that we are lowering the standards on things such as pilots and surgeons and doctors, and that's in the cases where it matters. That's why Coleman said, of course we see race, but in places where it matters, we should not be judging people on it, and the government shouldn't be. I don't think that we should lower standards in order to just make people feel more included. That is ridiculous.
these financial institutions to enact control over corporations. And it's a really shifty, weird way they're doing it by making it seem like they're trying to make the world a better, more equal place. And then there's some people who are good intentioned, but have a very narrow perspective and a very limited amount of information that they're operating under, that will try to pretend that these things are overall good, are net positive.
Right. And Sonny Hostin may be one of those people, but so we had 8 minutes to deal with this topic on one of the biggest platforms in the country, and especially an audience that isn't my typical audience. If anything, the Views audience is really who needs to hear my message the most. And Sonny decided to take up a few minutes of that precious 8 minutes and attack me as someone who's been co-opted by the right and someone who's a charlatan. And
did she use the term charlatan?
she did. And it's funny because I actually didn't notice it in real time.
Your argument for colorblindness, I think, is something that the right has co-opted. And so many in the black community, if I'm being honest with you, because I want to be, believe that you are being used as a pawn by the right and that you're a charlatan of sorts.
I kind of went in one ear and out the other. But
how did she say it? Do you remember what
she said? Something like, a lot of people in the black community, implicitly herself included, think that you've been co-opted by the right and that you're a charlatan.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I explained to her I've only voted twice, both for Democrats, Hillary and Biden, very open to voting for Republicans.
It really shouldn't even matter. Like, why does he have to disclose this information to her? It shouldn't matter if he's on the left or the right. And, like, I don't think she knows this. I mean, she probably should because she's a lawyer. But one of the rights of being an American citizen is having the ability to vote for who you want to. Or at least that's what they tell me, right? But anyways, it's like, why does he have to justify why does he have to disclose his political view in order for you to take what he's saying into consideration? Why are you going to just try and poke holes into what he says because you assume that he's a right-leaning conservative, a charlatan, like you say? Why?
I'm a political independent, and I'm only young enough to have voted twice. I'm an analyst at CNN, and I write for the Free Press, which is Barry Weiss's.
Yeah.
And I'm independent in all of those endeavors. And I patiently explained that, and then basically asked her to go back to the topic that we're here to
Super
discuss.
patient.
Yeah, well, it's a dumb way of addressing a thing, and to immediately say that someone's been co-opted with no evidence whatsoever. There's nothing about anything that you say that seems right-wing. You're just objectively looking at these subjects and giving a very
Facts over feelings,
intelligent
boo.
and measured opinion of them. That's not, and just because some people who happen to vote Republican may agree with you, like that's a ridiculous statement that you're co-opted. I think you're probably one of the least co-opted people I've ever talked to. You're very open-minded, and you're very objective.
I try to be. I try to be. But I would argue, even if I were co-opted, hypothetically, that doesn't make my argument here right now wrong. Right? Because people that are co-opted sometimes say true things.
Yes.
So even if I were, I would say it's still it's an ad hominem attack. It's to the person rather than to the argument. Because people that are co-opted sometimes say true things.
Yes.
So even if I were, I would say it's still it's an ad hominem attack. It's to the person rather than to the argument.
So the thing is, and Joe should know this, but the people on the left, especially people on The View, they live in an echo chamber. They will only want to hear opinions that agree with their own. If you don't agree with their ideology, then they're going to call you an Uncle Tom, a charlatan, a bootlicker, a conservative, a Trump supporter. Like Joe, you've gone through that yourself. Joe, Russell Brand, Jordan, like all of them have been boxed into a certain political party just because they have a disagreement in opinions.
Yes.
So let's get on to the issue.
Yes.
And I think part of the reason it went viral is because what people have told me is you very rarely see someone who gets a character attack on a big TV platform calmly expose it as evidence-free and then just move back to the topic.
Yeah, well, that was beautiful that you did that, and that's how everybody should approach these things. And
absolutely.
the problem is that's not what people want to do. What they want to do is engage in an argument and try to win. And it's not really about having an open mind and listening to what this person has to say and trying to figure out whether or not it resonates with you. Instead, they're just trying to win, and trying to win in this weird soundbitey way.
Okay, yeah. So can you guys see why I enjoy Joe Rogan personally? And this is, like, again, way before things got super tense in politics. Back in the day, like, maybe I was just an ignorant teenager in the early 20s, but I've always loved Joe Rogan. I've always thought that his perspective has been super based, and, he's had a podcast for over a decade at this point. I've been able to watch his conversation, see how the questions are going, and you really can see how someone's attitude is within a conversation, and you can judge how genuine they are in trying to get to know you and if they're just trying to attack you. And I think it's very interesting because like you can literally like watch the Don Lemon and Elon Musk conversation and then watch the Tucker Carlson and Cuomo interview. And for the most part, Don Lemon and Elon Musk are just as opposite as Tucker Carlson and Cuomo. And I think that's the thing. It's like you can really see the energy within the conversation if you're trying to actually understand someone and agree to disagree, which I think is a beautiful thing. And for some reason, that's a lost art in today's society. But I think you can see the approach. You can see if this person is actually thinking, rationalizing, and trying to put themselves into your shoes. But anyways, again, before I get too long-winded, I really want to share this clip because I thought it was really interesting, and I think it's an even better example of how we should sit down and have conversations. So anyways, if you guys enjoy this video, please do like and subscribe, and I'll talk again with you guys next time. Bye.